I know there's this idea of, I don't know, we're kind of going off topic now, but this is what we do.
Ramble.
I know. I know there's this idea of, well, look, they're young, they're U10, they're U9, they're U10. We shouldn't be changing the way we're playing because of how someone else is playing. We're trying to teach them principles, and it's important that they practice those principles and repeat those principles for those principles to set in and kind of become a part of the DNA.
Right.
I understand that. But if those principles mean that the players aren't tactically adaptable, is that DNA incorrect? Is that DNA wrong? And a big question, man.
No.
Okay.
Listen, no. My gut says no.
You want to say you want to say yes. I can see it in your face.
But my gut says no. But what is that? Who is that? My mind is telling me no, but my body's saying yes. That's like what I'm going through right now. But it's opposite. My body's telling me no, but my mind is saying yes.
Yeah.
Like the DNA, DNA to me, like Holly, right? She has a different DNA in her play than I do, than we do. I think you and I are more similar than me and Holly, sure. Right? So I look at Holly's teams and I'm like, they're great. She develops players.
Yeah.
She develops winning teams.
Yep.
Okay, she's doing her job.
And
I look at your teams and I'm like, they play like I said, we play closer than in similar ways, and your DNA is great, and you develop winning teams and you develop great players, right? I don't necessarily feel that DNA can be wrong, right? Because it's what the coach is implementing. Now, a coach can make bad decisions. They can make bad substitutes. They can, hey, we're going to play this system against this team, and then you get shelled, and you're like, whoops. That coaches can, make mistakes. It's not to say that their DNA was bad.
I'm going to challenge that. Challenge that. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So there's a coach who has players who, when it comes to tryout, they take the quickest, strongest, fastest players, don't care about technical ability. Because what we're going to do is we're going to sit in, we're going to go 4-4-2 block. When we win the ball, we are just going to go direct into the wide players. So wide players don't even have to kind of track back so much. We're going to go into that 2 wide players, and then we're going to attack with that 4 immediately and see if we can counter. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to concede goals. Yes?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Now, in terms of a DNA, you're going to say,
I don't like it.
All right.
But I'm not saying it's wrong.
Okay.
There's a difference. I could not like a system, a style of DNA. But my counter question is it effective? Right?
Well, yeah, fine. Is it effective? I mean, absolutely. But it'll be effective to a point.
Right.
And back to the conversation on developing players who can go and play anywhere at college. With that style of DNA, where I'm only going to play one way, I'm not even going to consider the players that I have. I'm not going to consider improving them technically. I'm not going to be even considering any of that. What we do is we go smash mouth, launch the ball forward, and see if we can get our quick players on the ball to score. How is that going to help these players get into college? And so for me, fundamentally, that DNA, that framework of player development is corrupt.
Yeah. Yes. I agree there.
I mean, that's just how I see it. And while I don't like to say you're wrong, or I'm going to say you're wrong, not you, but if somebody, and I've had the conversation where somebody's saying, no, listen, the results are what's important, because if you don't get the results, we'll be kicked out of this division or whatever. And, so we've got to make sure we're getting the results. I say that we defend, and we defend resolutely, and then we just counter and see if we can nick one. And if we win a game 1-0, then and I literally pushed back against it and argued it. Like, nope, that's not our job. My job is to develop players that understand the game, so that whoever they come up against, they can formulate a plan. They can read the tactical cues, and then they can make decisions that allow them to beat their opponent. I mean, but let's get back into the conversation around kind of. I mean, I guess we have been talking about styles, systems, flexibility, and that kind of thing. So we're not so far off topic.
No, it's relative in theory of bringing a player into a system or taking a system around a player.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Go on.
I want to add to this. So like I had a very special player. She was unbelievable 1v1, right? And even 1v2, right? Like she could ice players pretty bad. And the next thing she would do, she scored goals, but not like a ton, but it was the next pass, right? And you would see teams literally, like I had coaches come up to me and tell me, we practiced all week on how to stop this player. And I don't want to use her name because she's still a kid, you know what I mean? But how to stop this player. And then it was ineffective. And I'm like, yeah. So back when I had her, we took advantage of that, obviously, right? Isolate, get the ball wide. And we as a coach, as players, we encourage her to isolate players, right? And then when she had moved on, we said, okay, we have to take our same DNA, but now we lose that that crazy isolation advantage. We still have players who can isolate, right? But just not on her level. You know what I mean?
Cool.
And so now we started saying, okay, instead of giving the ball to her, letting her isolate 1v2, we're making runs in the box. Now we're joining the isolation to go create more 2v1 or 3v2s, depending, and playing through that fashion, right?
Right.
So did our system change? No, because we focused on 2v1s and 3v2s in different areas of the field more. Right? And so we're just adding another level to it. DNA the same.
So exactly. So it sounds like what you're saying is the DNA is always going to be to possess in an area where you force your opponent to overload, leaving an overload in your advantage somewhere else on the field. Then we work the ball to that player quickly, where we can then get an advantage. And all you're saying now is we do the same thing, but we've now got different triggers, so that when we're looking to get the ball to that isolate the player, we now add a second player.
Yes.
So the DNA is the same with a system tweak.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's fine. For me, this is where the framework should have room for flexibility, right?
Right.
Now, here's a question that I'll ask you. The player who was good in the 1v1s and 2v1s, and to the point where your opponents are having to come up with specific plans to stop that player from playing, which may have then kind of rendered that not as effective. Would it have been beneficial for that player to be taught how to recognize what the opponent's doing. And I'm not saying you never did this. I'm just putting this out there as theory. And to see that when, for example, when the opponent's pressing the ball, I'm hanging wide because we're looking for that switch of play. The fullback's close to me, but the wide player isn't tucking in to help with the press because their job is also to double up on me. So now I'm keeping the two wide players as wide as possible, which creates a hole in the press. So have we taught that player to recognize that, okay, they're double teaming me, which means we've got space somewhere, identify where that space is, and then talk to another player and say, I'm going to pull these two out, go into that space and you can get on the ball.
Yes. She was, I mean, so let's talk local Oregon, right?
If we have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like this was, you know, in local Oregon, it was state league. It was almost impossible. Like there wasn't a combination of players on opposing teams that could stop it. Okay. Right. When we started competing at regional, national level, yes, there were, right? And but the best part was like Oregon teams were like, oh, we have to deal with this play, right? How are we going to stop? How are we going to do? And it still wouldn't work. However, they would try to double up or send a center back closest, whatever, and they would be completely out of shape. And like the girls were smart enough. My 10 started to slide into that space. My 9 would drop in. They would interchange. Now the funny part is like the player, like you know the 11, the wide player, would be like, I'm not getting the ball, and she would hate it. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, but you're creating space for everyone else.
You're doing your job.
You're doing your job, right? And now at like regional, national levels, it would take the team about a half to sort it out.
Right.
Oh, and they would make adjustments, and then we would have to go back into linking and joining and attacking space that this player created by just holding wide, right? Yeah, so it would be interesting to see teams make that adjustment, right? And then like they would try to isolate it, but then they would also make mistakes. Like she was very rarely beat one, like being able to be stopped 1v1. Right. Like it was super rare. And then she would like if she realized she couldn't beat the player down the wing, she would be like body feint and cut in and just murder people that way because she could play center mid too. She was comfortable running across the pitch, like you know what I mean. And like I said, her best attribute was to make the next pass, right? Beat one player, draw another, make that pass, right? And that's where we killed teams, you know. But like after she was gone, like we had to make adjustments. Right. Yeah. You know, we also lost a very like aerial dual 9. Right. And so now, okay, well, like we don't have that 5'8", someone who's willing to target, jump, and head a ball. Like this girl scored like probably 50 goals from me out of the air. You know, and like now we lost that. You know, so now our 9s are 5'3". You know what I mean? But they're amazing. It's just different, and you have to like we like getting balls now instead of crossing all the time.
Right.
We're crossing on the ground a little bit more, so we make little adjustments.
Or even the wide play doesn't have to stop because the wide play, you understand, draws the fullbacks and separates the fullbacks for the centre backs. But now you might want to get your attacking your interiors, your 8s or your 10s higher, where we can then combine and get them into the half spaces.
Right.
And so the wide play is still a fundamental part of your DNA, but now we tweak the system where we're not going to be crossing in from the wide areas. We can now play into those half spaces, and we can start to find our small forwards making diagonal runs and you know this kind of thing. So yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm very much, you know, I have a way that I want to play, but I do take the time to identify the players' profiles.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking for some kind of symbiosis within the team, right? So, for example, if I've got a fullback that can tuck inside, well, they'll likely play with a wide player that can go 1v1 down the outside. If I've got an attacking fullback, I'll probably play them with an inverted wide player. So we can keep the width in the field because that's one of the tenets. That's one of the main kind of features of how we want to play. We want to play width, but who provides the width is open and flexible. As long as we understand that if this player is providing a width, then you've got to come into this space, right? So we start to talk a little bit about that kind of rotation and adaptation. The shape stays the same, but who's doing what? That kind of role orientation changes. And for me to be able to play like that, and this is why I was saying I love watching PSG at the moment. I love watching PSG at the moment.
Yeah.
The fact that Dembele as a 9 is all of a sudden picking the ball up, alongside the 6.
Yeah.
And who's tracking him?
Center backs aren't going. I'm not going that far.
Right, and they're not going that far. And now all of a sudden there's a midfield overload, and PSG with Vitinha in there, they're killing teams with the combination play to break those lines. And all of a sudden there's there's running at space. Now centre back has to step out because the midfield's been dominated and broken, and then you've got Doué who's making a slashing diagonal running behind. Oh man, it's just terrifying, to watch. And so, in terms of, again, back to the topic, I've been doing, some research and looking at things, and, a lot of the studies that I've seen say things like rigid systems can sometimes conflict with the individual strengths of players. You've got a 10 who is a creative, paints a picture in their mind and has got great distribution. And then all of a sudden you go into a team where the 10 is a dribbler. You can pick up the ball and you can beat people and draw pressure and, and that kind of thing. We're not going to get rid of that player to bring in somebody else. We don't have that luxury. But you're not also going to teach that player to stop dribbling and start to be a creative passer because this is my system.
Right.
When you do that to players, I think, first of all, your effectiveness as a team decreases, but then you also run the risk of alienating the player and stifling the player's personality and creativity, which is why you find a system to fit the player as opposed to the other way around. I also think for us as coaches who are learning to coach and who are, discovering the game and how to coach the game, I think for us, it's better for our development if we are also more pliable. So if we can recognize that, okay, again, I don't have the 10 that can drop into a pocket and who can pull strings. My 10 now likes to pick up the ball and run with the ball and is good at it. So what I'm going to do is maybe my rest defense changes, because if they go on that run and they lose the ball, we need to make sure we've got that space covered. And that allows me to then have to solve problems, which is only going to improve me as a coach. There's also this idea that when we have a set way of playing that is rigid, a rigid system, when we train, we tend to train by pattern instead of by small-sided game, where we let the game be the teacher. And we put players in situations where they have to solve problems. And so I think there are so many benefits to doing things in a way where you are fitting the system to the players than the other way. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of, make those points because I think they're important. I know we talk about player development a lot. You and I are kind of always talking about how we can improve players and this kind of stuff. But we're also about to embark on some licensing. And that first
Tuesday, baby, Tuesday.
Yeah, right. And that first assignment is, what are we going to be doing to improve ourselves and put ourselves into a position where we can progress in our careers?
Yeah.
And so, we should also start to think about what we're doing to help improve ourselves. Because if I can be a better version of myself tomorrow, then I can help my players be a better version of themselves tomorrow.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
100%. I mean, as a youth coach, like fundamentally, we talk about development. Our job is to develop players technically, tactically, intelligently, fitness, give them good habits, all of this stuff, right? And
social, and exactly.
And we're not gonna have we have a 6, and maybe this 6, has areas of improvement to work on, and if that 6 got really good at those areas of improvements, we can adapt our system to how we truly want to play. But until that happens, we have to give that 6 concepts and the team concepts off of what that 6 is capable of doing if we're playing through our 6, right? And
can I just add to that?
Yeah.
If we go back to the 6 example I gave earlier, where you've got one who can receive under pressure and roll pressure and carry, and then we've got one who can combine and use space really well to kind of combine and get into space to carry. If we teach a player how to be able to do both things, then it makes our system even more difficult to play against. Because now, no matter what type of pressure your opponents bring in, we've got players that can beat that because their skill set is much wider in terms of range. Yeah. So yeah, I agree.
Like Sergi Busquets, slowest soccer player ever. Always had time and space.
It's quick up there, isn't it? Quick up there.
Yeah, and his touch and just but yes. And so we as coaches, we have to always, I guess, be saying, all right, we're going to make our DNA, and we're going to take our system, and it may not be the end all be all what we want, but we're going to help players try to get there. And we're going to utilize what we can until players have reached that technical and tactical ability. Right. So, I mean, my older girls, I've had 8 years, right? And fundamentals from when we were U10 are still in place, right? Additive fundamentals from U12 are still in place, right? And they're playing U18, 19 now. And each, it kept just getting more and more with the same principles, same foundation and DNA, right? But we were able to keep adding because they got technically better. They got more intelligent. They got more fit, right? They got stronger. Their decision making became better, right? And I think, if you go back to the pro level conversation, I mean, yes, you're still developing players, right? You're never not developing a player.
For sure, yeah.
But you can go buy a player that is close to what you want, that fits your technical drive, that fits your system. And this kind of I want to talk about Guardiola here for a second, because I love that Barcelona era was my favorite, and even what he did with Man City, how he got them to they were just so dominant, right? But then I started thinking about and reading articles how Pep Guardiola ruined football. It became so mechanical, right? And it felt like we lost creativity. And then I started thinking, I'm how many Neymars are left? Right? A handful. How many? We're all in, right? A handful. Okay, you're starting to see it in Lamine Yamal again, right? Like other players. Look what he did to Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
right? Like Jack Grealish was unbelievable. And then it was almost like he was scared to take players on.
Yeah.
Right? Because it became so robotic and mechanical. And
Yeah.
then you go now look at PSG where it doesn't feel mechanical. What Enrique did with, like, you know what I mean? And they lost Mbappe, and that was a net positive for PSG.
Right.
Because that was a huge ego that didn't need to be in the locker room. Okay?
Yeah.
But you see this evolution, like all of a sudden everyone was like, let's emulate Pep Guardiola because but they forget that Guardiola had Messi. Everyone else was pretty robotic, you know what I mean? But when Messi got the ball is when you saw him dribble and isolate and stuff like that. And they just moved the ball until that moment. And then, like, I never felt like Man City had someone of that caliber. And I love Doku, Jeremy Doku. Like, I'm like a huge fan. Like, he is just explosive for me, right?
Savinho's good also.
Yes, Savinho, yes. And, you know, like Bernardo Silva, like a little magician too, but like it wasn't that explosive, like craziness, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like pass the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball. And it became so slow. So, go on.
I feel like when Guardiola first came, obviously that first season wasn't great. But then once he kind of got the players in that would fit his system, once he got in the Mahrez, he had what's your guy? Chelsea, Sterling. Yes. He had Sane. He had players who 1v1 could kill you.
Yeah.
He had players who 1v1 could beat you down the outside, who could cut inside.
Yeah.
I feel like at that point, that's when they were at their most creative.
Yes.
But then what happens in the league is there begins a trend where teams now low block, give you no space.
Yeah.
So where Mahrez, and I mean, you go back and watch it, like where Mahrez was able to step inside and drill and bend it top corner, and that stopped happening because teams started to kind of go with three players in a zone that would stop that from happening. And so then you start to rely a little bit more on the attacking fullback. So you'd have Walker. Was it Walker? Walker, who would be looking to get down the outside. But then because he's pushing forward and getting so high, now you've unbalanced your resting defense. So now the left back starts to tuck inside a bit more to give you a little bit more kind of stability in terms of the transitions. And so there's an adaptation. And then you ended up with them starting to play without a forward. Because now there's a player who can drop into midfield unmarked and help them break down teams through the middle. And so people then adapt to that, and now they've brought in the big forward, and now this is the big forward who nobody can stop. So they can go back to playing a little bit more how they want to play. I feel like it's not a case of them being mechanical. I think the positional play that they use, that kind of JDP style of playing, is the framework, is the blueprint.
Right.
Right. And what we're going to be looking for is we're going to be looking for those superiorities. Can we get somebody who can beat that player in a 1v1? So we're now going to play in a way where we isolate that player with that player 1v1 and let them go to work. So we're still allowing some creativity, but what we're doing is we're saying this is going to be our structure that allows us to create this situation where we can allow this person to create. Right? And then Doku, now he needs to have a centre midfielder that comes over to help out the fullback, because you put him 1v1 with a fullback, it's going to kill them.
Right.
And now we've got space in midfield. So now this is going to allow us to recognize that De Bruyne now is the player that we need to get the ball to, because he's going to be a person that can pull the strings and maybe create some chances or could shoot from the edge of the box. And so now we say the wide player is going to come, the weak side wide player is going to come in and occupy that space where De Bruyne plays on that kind of right interior. Well, great. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to work the ball out to the wide right, Savino or whoever it is, and we're going to let them kill their player 1v1. And so I think the way Guardiola sets his team up is it's structured in a way where there is actually so much flexibility in it that no matter what the opponent does, they can find a way to get it to their players who can create and who can let themselves shine.
Yeah.
And so I'm not bored of it. I don't see it as restrictive. I don't see it as mechanical in any way. In fact, I think what he's done is, in many cases, the greatest evolution of the game we've seen. Because there's no way to play against it. I mean, like, you know, you're literally going to have to go into some kind of a 5-5 or a 4-6 and leave the defenders to have the ball, so that you can make sure they can't get any of their creative players on the ball to do something. But the problem is, even then, those creative players have such genius about them that you can't stop them for a whole game.
Right.
You know,
one moment. You only need one moment.
Oh,
right.
Half a yard. You know,
for the record, I do agree with you. Like, I was just relaying information that
sure, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, like, I've loved like what he's done with the game, and I like a little bit of patience. And there are times where I watch and I'm like, come on, try to get forward. You know what I mean?
yeah. But it's not that it's boring. It's that you know that there's an inevitable outcome.
Yeah.
And it's just the anticipation of that outcome.
Yeah.
That can get a bit tedious. It's like, come on, look, we know that you're going to score. Just do it.
Get it going.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that was a little bit off topic, but that like still going with that theory of players for system or system for players. Right?
For sure. Yeah. So let me ask a question. We'll move the subject on slightly. Who should decide system, or who should decide what the playing DNA is? The reason I ask you this is when I went to Barcelona, the clubs in Barcelona basically said, it doesn't matter who we hire, doesn't matter what first team coach we bring in, they don't decide how we play. In fact, what we do is we will go and find a coach who tactically fits the way our club plays, because the way our club plays and the way our club does things is tightly related to our culture.
Yes.
So we are going to bring people in that will stay within our DNA and stay within our idea of the game. And that way we don't have to change what our academies are doing. So my question to you is, who do you think should decide what the system, what the DNA is?
I want to build on that for a second, because I know Barcelona well. Yes, Barcelona has a DNA, right? And if you're wearing that crest, like, their academies are the same. They have academy out in Tucson, Arizona, and it is like, I mean, I've watched these kids play, and you're like, yeah, it's Barcelona ball. Like, it's Barcelona football, right? And they bring in coaches. And then if I start thinking about, like, I mean, this all started with Cruyff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the whole thing started with Cruyff, really.
Rinus Michels.
What's that?
Rinus Michels. Rinus Michels is the one who taught Cruyff, and then Cruyff is the one who then kind of made it a bit more mainstream, but then also took it from one country to another country and implemented it in another country. So.
Yeah, he was the one that put it in Barcelona, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, and it's been very present since Johan, right? And like, you could see it in Pep, you can see it, and then like there were certain coaches like Tata Martino that, like, it was there, right? and
Rijkaard was
Rijkaard,
slightly different, but you could see.
Yeah. And oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Ronald Coleman.
Yeah.
Like, you could see it, but it was slightly different. You could see it like Tito Villanova and Pep were like that, and like they were the same. But and then now you got Hansi Flick, and you could see it, but then Hansi's got like this. Dude, I love Hansi Flick right now for this club. You know what I mean? He's just added this whole nother level to it, and obviously Xavi Hernandez was kind of really brought it back to the way Barcelona was. Okay, anyway. So then you go and you look at like Real Madrid, and Real Madrid don't have a DNA in that. They played different with Mourinho. They played different with Zidane. They played different, with I'm interested to see how they play with Alonso.
Right. Well, they're going to play Alonso's way, because Alonso wouldn't have gone there if he wasn't going to be allowed to do it his way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I feel like they change with their coaches. Okay.
Yeah. I would say that if I had to say that what was Real Madrid's DNA, I would say Real Madrid's DNA is winning.
Yes.
I don't care how you do it. But win.
And buy players. Buy players, win.
Right. Yeah, let's bring in big names, because big names usually means higher outputs. And let's see if we can just go and win.
Winning, right?
I would agree.
Okay, so now that that's kind of present, how do we do it at club level? Okay, well, my first club here in Oregon was very hands off. Like, you can go to 10 different games, right? From like U9 and up to U19, and you're going to see 10 different ways of playing. And
I think that's most clubs.
Yeah, I know. So do I, right? So, and that's fine, because it was like, hey, we're hands off. You're a coach. Do your job. Develop. Get the kids playing. Great. Okay. So I never felt like restricted. You know what I mean? My like football just came out because of that. Okay. And then I still feel like that's very present at my new club. You know what I mean? Which is great, because they're hiring coaches to do a job, develop, and teach kids to play. Right? My way is slightly different than so-and-so's. This way is slightly, and kids are getting, if they're being passed on every 3 years or so, they're getting different aspects and a different way to think, and that's great. However, there still needs to be, like, at youth levels, and this is where I find fallacies, like at youth levels, and I'm not speaking from experience at either one of the clubs ever, just speaking generally, is every coach needs to focus on fundamentals. That should be the DNA of develop fundamentals, technical fundamental development, right? Whether that's all the way down to like the little ones and academy level, like we're teaching them ball mastery, love of the game, love of the ball, 1v1. Like we've talked about this in previous episodes, right?
Yeah.
To me, at a youth level, that is your DNA. That's what your DNA should be. Like, it's okay to have different systems, like, unless you're Barcelona, but we're talking football in America. You know what I mean? Where we have ridiculous amounts of players and ridiculous amounts of clubs and stuff like that. Fundamentally, your DNA is to develop players.
Yeah.
Play a 4-4-2, play a 4-3-3, don't care. You know what I mean?
Go. Yeah.
Play low block counterattack, don't care.
So let me ask you this then. If we're saying La Masia is the elite of the elite when it comes to developing a DNA and player development, and we are saying that here we want to be elite. I mean, we want to play at the elite level. We want to challenge on a national stage, that kind of stuff. Why would we not replicate what the the other elite, and by when I say other elite, I'm talking about the real elite. Why would we not replicate what the elite are doing? Because they have a very strict way of, I mean, to the point where it's, I'm going to, we have certain exercises that we don't compromise. You've got to do these exercises.
Yeah, yes, I agree with
So
that.
like every session, there has to be a rondo involved.
Yes, I agree with that.
Every session, there has to be a 6v6 small-sided game. And then based on what the topic for the week is, because the topic of the week is curriculum-based, it's not reactive, what did we not do well in the last game? It's progressive curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what the subject for the week is, then the coach can develop a small game that brings out those tactical technical elements. But if you're going to work here, this is how you do it. As the director, I'm going to set what the coaching, the actual coaching plan, and I'm going to give you a little bit of it that you can then use your creativity. Why would we not do that here and have a well thought out DNA that is going to be around developing players who can think, players who are technically proficient, players who can read tactical cues, who can, adapt to different styles of play, or let's say even who can adapt to an opponent, because they're so kind of ingrained in what it means to be a soccer player.
Yeah.
Well, why would we not do that?
I mean, yes, if the elite clubs are like, they have a system, right? I mean, creating a structure like, hey, every week you have to work on ball mastery, right? Every week you need to complete like 40 minutes, hour, whatever of 6v6 small-sided play, right? We can implement this kind of stuff. I also believe that clubs should be teaching kids how to play out of the back instead of just kicking it, just like bombing it long. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they should teach outside backs to overlap. Like 100%. I feel principles are there, but now if you look at like a club that has elite level programs, we're talking National League, ACRL, ECNL, MLS next, and competitive teams. So teams that play in the State Cup, President's Cup, Founders Cup.
State level. Yeah.
State level. Yeah. You want continuity because your objective is to take players from the competitive level and push them, develop them into the next level tier.
Agreed.
Right? And if the upper levels can playing a different way than what the state level's playing, they're going to be like, I don't get it. So
yeah, you're not providing a pathway to those upper levels.
So everybody should be working on the same principles. Everybody's working on technical development. Everybody's working on the same principles. However, I don't feel justifying playing like the whole club plays a 4-3-3, right?
Right. Sure.
Formations, like you can't be restrictive on formations.
Well, that ties into the topic. If you don't have the players to play a certain formation, then you have to change your system to adjust to the players you have. But the principles stay the same. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But principles, I think, as a club, like if I owned and operated a club, I would make sure that there are standards. Every team is working on this. And I would I don't know if I would go as far as like a mandate, like, hey, January, February, March, you're working on playing out of the back and high pressing. You know what I mean?
I would. Yeah. Because that's what a curriculum is.
Yes, no, I agree with having a curriculum. You know what I mean?
But
But
that's what a curriculum is, a mandate for in this year at U12. By the end of U12, our players should be able to do this.
yes,
Because when they go into U13, they should be learning this. And if they haven't got this layer, then they can't learn that next layer.
I agree with that. But I'm just saying, as restrictive as like January, February, March. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
hey,
I would.
look at your team right now. Are they good at playing about? Cool. Okay, so maybe January, February, March, you're working on this topic. But you have to. They have to become fundamentally sound in these areas by the time they go into U13.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying.
For me, the reason I say that it should be restrictive, but it should, I'm going to add, it should also be repetitive.
Yes.
Is you want there to be progression, right? And so, again, the studies have shown that if you apply a tactical topic today, and then in your next session, you then went to maybe a counter topic. So let's say we were saying, all right, Monday we're going to talk about, or Tuesday we're going to talk about playing out from the back. And then on Wednesday, we're going to talk about high pressure. So the focus has changed, but because they are two related topics, we're still getting to kind of focus a little bit on the on the both sides of, you know, pressing and playing out from the back. And then we go, okay, we're going to talk about a transition moment on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
When we then eventually come back to the topic, what we find is that the players are more adaptable. They're more able to pick up the tactical cues and to use those tactical cues successfully than if we just stick with teaching one topic, because we're not given an opportunity for the players to forget what they've learned as such and then come back into a situation where they're going to have to recall that information. Right. Games, that's what games are. Games are about recalling the information that you've learned over your period of education. So if we're not given an opportunity, if I'm going 1v1 defending, 2v2 defending, back 4 defending, and I'm being sequential like that, I'm never really giving them an opportunity to have to focus on learning a whole new topic and then recall the information that they've learned a month ago, to then show that that understanding has been set and has become a part of their player DNA. So I think having a structure where we're saying, and this is just, for me, this is just periodization. You know, I'm saying, if we look at the year, that macro cycle of a year, I'm going to break that down into mesocycles of 6 weeks. So for this 6 weeks, we are going to learn, let's say a U13 team, we're going to be talking about how we can high press for the defending. For the transition, it's going to be how we can slide back into a mid block if our press is broken. Let's say then the attacking transition is going to be how we attack from a mid press to allow us to create chances quickly after we've retrieved possession or we gained the possession. And then the attacking is going to be how we are able to position ourselves to create chances and to stretch an opponent when we have the ball in the final third. Let's just say 4 related topics for that 6-week period. Well, they should all relate into what I want that U13 team to be efficient at by the end of the year. So for the next mesocycle, those topics will all change. And then for a third mesocycle, it might all change again. And that brings me from the end of summer to Christmas. When we start the year again, we'll go back to that first mesocycle. And now I'm giving you an opportunity to recall that information, because it's important that we're able to kind of know that and reinforce that. And by the end of that year, the players then should be adept at all of those topics that have been taught over the year and that have been repeated over the year. Now we've got that framework set. Now we can go into that U14 age group. And when we go to U14, we will build on that a little bit more. I think this is, for me, the benefit of curriculum. You know, I look at coaching much like teaching. And if in teaching, they have curriculums where they have weekly plans on this is what we're going to be working on and this is how this moves into this, then why would we not do the same?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, and I agree with it. I do. I agree with it. I just think of like our current youth landscape.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's also what we struggle with too, right? Like if we go to, you know, an elite club with its own training facility, zero conflicts of high school sports, this and that, you know, people just landing on the pitch, whatever the case may be. I think you have the ability to do all of this. And yes, I mean, framework, a curriculum. I just like freedom in a curriculum. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. My experience has been that when there isn't a curriculum, or when there isn't a framework, when we don't have age-based or stage-based goals, coaches will then work on deficiencies from their games.
Yes.
Which leaves huge holes in player development.
Yes.
You know, if I've got a team that isn't defending very well, all I'm going to focus on is how do we defend? How can we defend? And we're just going to go a large block on how we can defend. But then how am I improving players with the ball? Because that's also a form of defending. If I can keep the ball and you can't have it, you can't score against me. So if we took a more curriculum-based approach, we don't create holes in players' learning or gaps in players' learning, because we understand this is the target for the end of the year. You know, they might not be able to do these other things, but they don't need to be able to do these other things now. What they need to be able to do now is this, and then the things, that next thing that we're not doing so well, they'll learn that at U14. You know, and that inevitably will lead to, and this is why it's not win at all costs, that will inevitably lead to teams not winning all the time. But when we get to 15 and 16, and they've been going through this curriculum since 8, how round is that player going to be because there's no gaps in their learning?
Right.
You know, and for me, this is what I bring back from Spain. Because this is, I mean, they would show us their cycles, and they showed us, you know, how they cycle through topics and what their week looks like and what their 6 weeks looks like, you know, and we just don't do that well here.
No, we're very reactive.
Yeah.
I mean, like, listen, I've been guilty of it too. Like, you know, like in a game, I'm like, I forgot to teach him that. Like, we better teach him that. You know?
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think there's any problems with that. You know, for example, I say to my players a lot. We were playing in a game against Holly's group the other day, and they conceded from a cutback cross. And we've been working on how at the back line reads pressure, so how we slide, recognizing that the fullback's gone out, so I slide across into that space so that when the ball goes in there, I'm already there to be able to kind of deal with that. But then when I slide into that ball, anticipating the ball into the space, how everybody else comes across with me. Now, we've been talking about how we play in that kind of block of 4-4, how we get compact, all of those kinds of things. What we haven't spoken about is, right, when the ball's in the wide area and the player gets to the byline and pulls the ball back or is crossing, how do we deal with that? So I'm not penalizing the players and saying, oh, we've conceded 2 goals from crosses. You know, for the next 4 weeks, we're going to work on dealing with crosses.
Right.
What I'm saying is, we'll get to that. But what I want to know is that the things that we're focused on, we're doing well. If you are taking the teaching that I'm giving and you're applying that in the game, then that's great. We'll concede goals like this until we've worked on it. But what is important now is we work on these 2 things, these conflicting yet related topics, to make sure we can do this well. And then when we move into the next mesocycle, we'll start talking about the other things. Because I don't want to create those gaps. At the same time, if we're conceding from corners a lot, then we might say, do you know what? For one session, we need to do a low intensity session because we're training on Monday and we played on Sunday. So why don't we just work on some set pieces? I don't see the problem in that. What I think is inappropriate is we go, you know, our back line isn't connected. We conceded goals from straight through balls that beat us, and we conceded a lot of goals like that. So this week we're going to work on how we stay connected. And then we go into the games at the weekend and we concede because our connectivity isn't quite where it needs to be. And so, well, this week we're going to have to work on it again because it was a problem last week. And then the following week, we're going to have to work on that again because it wasn't where it needs to be. And now we've gone 4 weeks, we're working on the same topic. So where are we improving in the other areas, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to get at. I think having the odd session where we go, you know what, let's work on this today because, you know, we haven't done this yet and this came up. And so, you know, let's talk about it. I don't think that's a problem. I think when we start to jump around topics where there's no rhyme or reason, there's no progression in what we're working on, I just think there's a greater opportunity to create learning holes, you know, a little bit of an abyss in some areas of learning. Whereas if we go a more progressive way, we can touch on everything and build the player. It's kind of like, imagine you're building a wall and on this line of bricks, there's some bricks missing. And then we build on it. And when we build on that next line, there's some bricks missing. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you can kick the wall and the wall falls down. Right? And so we want to, I think, making sure that we're laying all of the bricks within that line properly allows us a stronger platform for that next line of bricks.
Yeah, I know. I think that's great. And I'll be honest, like as a coach, it's creating, and I guess I'll learn this in our course a little bit more, force myself to do it, is actually creating like training blocks, you know? Right. Yeah. I think it is.
Yeah, you're going to have to do, you're going to have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to want to see that. So, yeah.
So, yeah. And I think as a club, you know, should we? Probably. Like, you know, at the youth level, as a club, as a youth level, you probably should, right? Mm-hmm. But I just like, I feel like giving the coaches, you know, because we get, what do we get? Our teams like in May. By the time we really get going, it's almost June, mm-hmm. right? Because we go through tryouts and then sometimes mm-hmm. there's a break. And so just call it June 1st, right? Get to know your mm-hmm. teams, have fun. Through May, have fun with them. Get mm-hmm. to know your players, get to know your teams, right? And mm-hmm. then June, July, August. Okay. Like here's your choice. Like you have to work on these principles, you know, or these things through the course of the year. choose what topic, what
Mhm.
principle, or what you want to do for 3 months. Don't
Mhm.
always put it in the same order, right? Like
Right.
not every coach has to. Like that's where I want a little bit of freedom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm big, like me, I'm big on technical. Like you know what I mean. I feel like, and going back to our last conversation, having opposed and unopposed technical training specific days,
Mhm.
right? They could be all in the same. Opposed, unopposed can be on the same day, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so now that we've ranted completely off topic, but
No, I think we're still on topic. I do think we're still on topic. I have to say.
So when we get that new player, like how do we fit them into the system? Like we're
Right.
club principles, right? And I think the clubs need principles. Who are you? How do we play? How do we develop, right? And like if you want more players at your club to be better, you have to develop players. You want new players to come to your club. You want little Janie over there to turn around and be like, yeah, I play here.
Mhm.
This is my coach.
Mhm.
My team's really good. I'm learning. You should come play for us. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, kind of thing.
Or even, because you're developing the players go out and they perform and they put a product out on the field that people look and go, geez, like, they the best players on the other teams are like, I want to go there because that environment looks like it will challenge me, and they're playing a really great brand, but the product they're putting out there is successful, So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So shall we leave it there? I think.
Yeah. My conclusion is I don't know where I start. No, I think. Go ahead.
I'm definitely in the camp of your system fits your players. But go on, you finish your thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I'm still like I don't know where I'm at because like the truth is like when I get new players, like okay, I just took over 40 teams this year, right? No, never enough, man. I love it. And now, like I'm gonna teach them my football, right? I'm gonna teach them my principles. I'm gonna teach them the way I see the game.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and it's great because I don't really know what they've been taught in the past. I don't know how they, you know what I mean? Like it's brand new. So I'm going to give them a little bit of Johnny Cardello and like, this is my football that I want to leave you with,
Yeah.
And so I got to mold the players. I got to mold the system.
Yeah.
Now, once Cardello ball has been established, and if we get new players or this and that, then it becomes make the system to fit your players. And like, yes, there's gonna be moments where I'm like, okay, well, I have this player and they're very good at this, and we're gonna utilize that. And if that player gets promoted, then I have that to fill, and I have an adjustment like I was talking to my previous player. So I don't know. Do I live in both? I guess I live in both.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to implement the system before you can then start to play with the system. So what you're saying is we're going to implement some principles, and within those principles, we'll have a style of play. And that style of play may be more nuanced and change in a more nuanced way, but the principles will be the same.
Right.
We just have to teach the principles first. And then if a player moves on, the principles are set. We just now have to change, tweak here, tweak there. And again, that for me falls into that idea of the system fits the players, because we wouldn't be making tweaks if we figured that this is the system and it's rigid and you've got to come in and fit and do what the system dictates,
Yeah.
So yeah, for a future episode, my question's going to be: if you've got 4 teams, and each of those teams has a different player profile set up, are you doing the same sessions with those teams, or are you doing 4 separate session plans because each one of those team makeups is different and you need to make sure the training tailors to each individual team? Don't answer it now. Don't answer it now.
I plead the fifth. I do want to. I actually do want to answer this now.
No, not now.
Oh, you're setting up for a future
we'll
session.
Come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Oh no, it's going to be a whole episode.
All right. Where can we find you, Johnny? Where can we find you?
On X, you can find me Coach Cards PDP. Coach Cards PDP.
And I am at Project Soccer on whatever platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So, yeah, good conversation, man. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, you know, if you want to add to the conversation, you want to come and give us your thoughts, and you know, be prepared to back it because there'll be questions back. But if you want to come and give us your thoughts and come and communicate and get into conversation, we welcome it because we are both, you know, desperate to learn more about the game, more about coaching, and more about the discipline. So, yeah, come, challenge us, talk to us, let us know what you're thinking. We welcome it.
I'm scrolling through some of our clips that you posted, and I haven't seen any comments. I'm going to be honest. I want to see some comments.
Yeah, I've seen a few. I've answered a few, but there's not many. So yeah, there's been a lot of people that have followed, and a lot of people that have kind of liked some stuff, but not as many of the comments. So yeah, come and get into the conversation for sure.
Yeah, it would be. Listen, if you haven't learned, Angelo and I like to banter. So come banter with us.
Yeah, don't bring banter to me because I get aggressive.
But, no, I mean good banter, good banter.
but come and ask questions, and let's get into an evidence-based conversation because I'm always going to ask for evidence. So yeah.
Sounds good. All right, everybody.
Peace out. Speak to you later.